Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be checking out Absolute Superman issue 4 by Jason Aaron, Rafa Sandoval and Ulysses Areola. Lois Lane's journey to find the truth continues this issue as she travels the world interviewing people from the sites where Superman has been seen, finding that he's been working in the towns as a regular person before doing something heroic to stop Lazarus and their operations. The trajectory that Aaron has put Lois on with her looking for the truth and that translating back into her character becoming sort of a reporter is really fucking cool. It's like no matter what universe they're in, these characters have a somewhat set path and we get familiar beats in their character development that no matter how far they are away from that original take on the character, they usually all come back around to becoming that character in some way. Lois also finds out that the Peacemakers have been overstepping in their authority in a lot of these locations, tracking down a group who cut up a woman and dealing out some much needed revenge on behalf of the woman. Lois gets back to her reporting and Aaron uses this as an opportunity to explore the effects Superman has had on people. There's fantastic little bits of dialogue throughout this issue where people are just talking about how just being near him makes you want to do better and be better, and it like changes you, and once you've seen him in action it's pretty hard to forget. What's interesting though is since this is the Absolute Universe, this is a universe created by Darkseid, so things like hope and optimism and inspiration have to work a little bit harder. We see that hope is kind of being warped a little bit by these people who hope that Superman, with all his powers and what he's doing, kills all of Lazarus and frees them once and for all, once his anger finally boils over. The anger that this Superman has is something we've seen little glimpses of here and there. He's been keeping it in check so far, but I'm sure this is going to come to a point where we actually see it be truly tested, and I think when we get to see that, we're going to see the true Superman come through and he's going to beat the hopelessness this world is throwing at him and show them that hope shines through in even the darkest world. Lois's investigation is soon hampered by a call from the General, her father Sam Lane, who is very concerned that Lois is going after the Superman character alone. It's good to see that no matter the universe, Sam Lane seems to be a stern, bitter old man who wants Superman dead the minute he hears about him. Interestingly though, we learn that he is actually kind of a retiree, as he is a double amputee, having lost both his legs to the Omega Men, and it's because of this we learn that he particularly hates the Omega Men, seeing them as super terrorists that should be nuked from orbit, much like Superman. He also doesn't like that his daughter is trying to find the truth or like use truth to get what she needs. He says that he would rather use something like fear in order to get what he needs, since that's a useful tool and useful weapon for a soldier. I really do like how jaded and cynical this Sam Lane is. He just can't entertain the fact that his daughter is trying to use the truth and trying to find the truth in what's going on as a way to figure out like who's good and who's bad. Like, he doesn't think that way at all. He's not wired that way. And it also gives us a little bit look into Lois's family life, because obviously, you know, her father was always like this in some way, and even when she was a child we get hints that like when she was 12 she was shown terrorist beheading videos in order to kind of like seal her off from like any sort of emotion to these sorts of things and kind of get her ready for her role as an agent of Lazarus. We've seen that in some continuities where Sam has tried to like shift his daughter over into a more militaristic role, and I like I said at the top of this review, I like that we can do this sort of stuff but then the characters start to sort of shift back to their classical interpretations, and what we're seeing here with Lois, where she's reporting and investigating the truth and the facts and wants to know what exactly is going on. We're seeing her sort of shift away from being someone who's in the military and into someone who's a bit more of a reporter. After her lovely chat with her father, Lois ditches her Peacemaker detail and goes out into the Pakistani town she is in alone, talking to Superman in hopes that he will hear her with his super hearing and learn that she is completely alone. Lois isn't alone, as the Omega Men are stalking her. While Lois explores the city, Peacemaker Christopher Smith undergoes therapy sessions with Brainiac about his run-in with Superman back during issues 1 and 2. Like we saw with Lois realizing that the Brainiac system is only writing reports on what it wants and kind of changing the facts that she know are true to be something completely different, Chris becomes angered at the system for doing just that with his story, where the system implies that his weapon malfunctioned and that he'll be put back on active duty eventually, and he knows that that's not exactly what happened. That he knows that he took the shot at Superman. He knows that he was going to fight and win against this being, but the system doesn't want to see it that way because it's not good for the algorithm, and he becomes quite angered at that. Even more so when he learns that he's going to be put back on active duty in the same town Lois currently is in. Aaron is building this really nice parallel between Lois and Peacemaker here. We both went through the exact same experience with, fighting Superman, and even now realize that Brainiac systems are kind of wrong and something's going on with them. But they're also coming to the complete opposite conclusions here, as Lois wants to look for the truth, while Chris just wants to hide from it under the veil of he's bringing peace to the world through what he is doing, and he just kind of wants to just mask it and just not look at it all that much. It's a really interesting way to develop Chris as a character and get him more involved in the story and make him more than just someone who's just about peace through any means and not have anything really behind that. It's just giving it a little bit more layers and a little bit more oomph than it usually is written with. Lois, meanwhile, sets a trap for one of the Omega Men following her, and surprised that the man is revealed to be Jimmy Olsen, who reveals that he's not actually there to kill her. He's there to see if she's actually on the right side of all of this. So there's this really amazing detail about Jimmy here in this universe, since obviously he's not a photographer, but when he puts on his Omega Man mask, the Alpha mask, it emits a bright flash of light, almost like a camera flash, which blinds Lois and allows him to get the drop on her, if only for a moment. I haven't really mentioned until now the simplicity of Rafa Sandoval's designs, like Jimmy's here is just a coat with a mask with the Alpha symbol on it. It's just very simple. The color of the coat is cool as well, since it's this neat sort of like mustard yellow that is kind of a great callback to Jimmy and his costume, since when he's not wearing the green tweed coat we usually see him in with the bow tie, usually in a yellow shirt, or he's got like a yellow vest on, or like an off yellow vest. We see that translated here with the color of the coat, which I thought was really neat and something that I'm not sure a lot of people would have gotten in first glance. I certainly did. I only got it on my second reading of the issue. Despite being blinded, Lois is able to fight Jimmy, who puts up a pretty good fight himself as he asks Lois if she knows anything about Lazarus, who runs it, and what they really are about. So one thing I have noticed is Lazarus' motto is Lazarus is life, which we've seen before plastered on walls and on the sides of tanks and stuff, but it only just dawned on me that it's kind of the antithesis of Darkseid, who is anti-life. Now I'm not sure what the meaning behind that is totally right now, but it's an interesting thing to keep a note of and maybe keep an eye on, and maybe there is something there with what Brainiac is doing and how maybe he's bringing life to this universe and complete opposite to what Darkseid is doing. Who knows, but I'm excited to find out. Jimmy knows that Lois is smart and shouldn't be falling for the propaganda, but it really has done a number on her, and she still fully believes that the Omega Men are super terrorists. Jimmy had hoped that with everything that she has seen recently that she would just accept the truth, but now it's too late and she must run as Jimmy's partner, Omega Prime, arrives to kill Lois. The ensuing gunfight alerts the Peacemakers nearby, including the newly arrived Chris Smith, who leads the Peacemakers into the city. Lois meanwhile continues to deal with the Brainiac system, which is deliberately trying to force her to kill the Omega Men now that it knows that she is fighting them, since she wants to keep them alive so she can learn things about them and maybe even Lazarus. We see the system tries to circumvent her commands, where she wants to load in non-lethal rounds, it loads in lethal rounds, meaning she can't use her gun. We get a great deal of plot here regarding the Omega Prime, or Primus as she wants to be called, as it's revealed that she was the one who cut off Sam Lane's legs. We actually never see Primus's face, so I know it's going to be a big reveal when it eventually happens. And if I was to have a guess, I think given the ties between Lois and her father here, that they make a point of actually saying that they have had past run-ins, I think maybe this Primus could be Lucy Lane, Lois's sister. I think it would fit with the story really nicely as well, where Lois went down one path that led her to Lazarus, she followed after her father, but Lucy kind of adopted the Lois role in this universe, where she went against her father's wishes, didn't join the military and went somewhere else, which led her to the Omega Men. It would fit really nicely with the story of Lois, discovering the truth as well. Before Primus can kill Lois, Jimmy gets involved trying to stop his partner, but he doesn't get the chance as Superman shows up. Superman's introduction here is just really damn cool, as it uses the soul suit and the cape to great effect, as the cape kind of turns into this billowing cloud of crystal particles that sort of shield Lois from everything, and Primus and Jimmy are blasted back by it. The overall use of the suit and its functions has been just so creative and different from issue to issue, and I like that. So far we haven't seen the same trick twice, I don't think. Once Superman makes his landing, Primus tries to plead her case with him, saying the Omega Men are ready to help him, but Superman is not interested in someone who tried to hurt Lois. While he saved Lois, he's not interested in helping her either, demanding that she stop looking for him since he's got nothing to say to her. This is a pretty neat inverse on what we usually get from a first time meeting with Lois and Superman sequences, as Clark is often trying to confide in Lois and he often, seeks her out to help tell his story to the world. He chooses her. Here, Lois is trying to seek him out for his story, but Superman has no intention of doing that and doesn't want really anything to do with her. It adds this cool dynamic to their relationship where both being kind of antagonistic to one another, which is something we never really get with the Lois and Clark relationship. It's usually pretty well, formed from the beginning where they both, kind of like each other, and there's a little bit of it here and there, but it usually goes away quite quickly. The Peacemakers soon arrive and Chris confronts Superman, hoping to get another chance at taking the hero down. Superman delivers just this amazing burn as Chris wants to know if Superman remembers who he is from when they last fought. Superman just blows him off, saying he doesn't remember him at all, before freezing him and the rest of the Peacemakers in a solid block of ice. Now I can't wait to see what happens to Chris after this, since he's already kind of, messed up in his mind with what happened the first time he fought Superman, and now the guy he thought was like his biggest enemy just doesn't remember him. He's not worth remembering because he's just, a run-of-the-mill foot soldier. Again, it's just such an interesting way to build up Chris's mission of peace and cloaking it in this obsession with Superman, who in his own way is, bringing peace to these places on Earth. So it's really quite this interesting dynamic. And again, it's like Superman, making Peacemaker a Superman villain. That's really damn cool. Superman doesn't stick around and takes off, leaving Lois without any answers to her questions. Primus meanwhile berates Jimmy for missing his shot with Lois, and maybe he doesn't have what it takes to be an Omega Man. Jimmy, however, is still convinced that Lois has a good heart on her, and she just needs a little bit more time to be convinced. A really awesome bit here is that in most continuities, Jimmy is kind of the one who gets the first decent photo of Superman. He's the one who usually gets the photo for the front of the Daily Planet. And here we see that he actually snapped a picture of Superman, the first decent photo of Superman in this universe, on his phone during the battle. Chris, meanwhile, is freed from his icy prison and ends up snapping, and we get to see kind of like a brief aftermath of him getting told by Superman that he doesn't remember him at all. And we see that he actually killed all the nearby civilians in a fit of rage as he heard them laughing at him and the rest of the Peacemakers and kind of obscuring their mission of peace. And we learned that he killed them in such a brutal fashion and such an animalistic fashion that he had to be restrained by the other Peacemakers, who know that because of what he has done, he has just basically sign their death warrants, as Superman is no doubt going to hear about this. And I like that this is probably going to feed into the stuff we saw at the start of the issue, where people were betting on Superman's rage finally boiling over to the point where he will actually deal with Lazarus in a more final way and actually kill them. And I think that this is what we're going to see here, where Superman will find out about the dead people, learn that Chris did it, and that's going to pit them against each other, and something maybe Chris actually wants to happen. Absolute Superman issue 4 was another stellar issue. Aaron's take on hope and how this Superman inspires it in the people of the Absolute Earth is so interesting and refreshing, yet it hits all of the hallmarks of classic Superman as a character. The focus on Lois this issue and her search for truth was a lot of fun and used in a very efficient way to bring more world building into the story, and even new characters like this world's Jimmy Olsen and Sam Lane, both who had really interesting and different character arcs that both still adhere to a lot of their classical character arcs. Like Jimmy eventually does use things that are related to photography, and Sam Lane is all about trying to take down Superman and the Omega Men. It's just really damn cool. Next issue is the final part of this first story arc for the book, and I can't wait to see how Aaron rounds out Absolute Superman's debut story. I am going to give this issue a 10 out of 10.